Jen, I watched the recording. You did a fine job last time, but would you like me to take over my usual routine here?
1,000% yes.
Okay, okay. All right, and Kelly, we have the recording started, so great. Good morning, everybody. I'm calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It is 11:17 on August 21st, 2024, and I'm Barbara Neal. As a reminder, the meeting's being recorded and the recording will be posted on the task force webpage following the meeting. Let's start with our usual roll call of task force members. Please verbally acknowledge your presence when I call your name. Jen Morrison.
I am here.
Morning. Mike Dunges.
I am here.
Okay. Jim Mack.
Here.
Great. And Ron Kumitz.
I am here.
Morning. And I see that we do not yet have Paul White or Michael Wright. Paul may be joining later. Michael, I'm not sure of his plans. So also joining us today, of course, is Callie Audette as our administrative support and our project management team, Rick and Dom from Televate. I see Rance Duffy from Mission Critical Partners is on. And we have, it looks like perhaps 3 members of the public with us. I'll call your name and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and any affiliation you care to share. So let's start with, I see a Tracy Martin from Hardwick on the screen.
Yes, hi. I apologize for being off camera. I'm not doing that intentionally. Something's wrong with my camera, so I would be here fully if I could be. Yeah, so I work part-time for the town of Hardwick. I'm the community development coordinator, and I've been working with the police department here around struggles they are having with radio communications in town. And so we're just interested in what's going on at a statewide level. And Kelly shared information about some of your work, and I just hope it's okay if I just listen in today.
It is absolutely okay. And there will be an opportunity for public comment a little bit later in the agenda. So if you'd like to share a little bit more about your particular issues, that would be fine, or not. And you can also get comments to us in any other fashion if you'd like.
Great, so, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Let's go to Kim Cheney. You're muted, Kim. Kim, you're still muted. Can't hear you. We still can't hear you, Kim. I can see that you're speaking, but. Okay. Kim, we cannot hear you. I'm going to move on to Stephen, and if you get connected to the audio, we'll go back to you. So I see meeting guest. I assume that's Stephen Whitaker. Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Just Steve Whitaker from Montpelier.
Okay, good morning. All right, Kim, let me give you one more chance.
Kim, the mute button is at the top of the screen. 2 icons over from the lead. There you go. You got it.
Did I get it?
You got it.
Finally. Well, I want to tell you that I've just returned from carpal tunnel surgery, and my hand and my brain was numb. The numb brain was kind of refreshing for a change. So I'm looking forward to having you wake it up for me.
All right. Well, great. Thanks for joining us. Moving on to approval of the agenda. So the agenda was distributed to task force members by email. It's also available on our webpage. Do task force members have any proposed changes to the agenda? Okay. Seeing and hearing nothing, we'll consider the agenda approved. and move on to approval of the minutes from the August 7th meeting. That's regular meeting number 31. Do task force members have any changes for these minutes? Okay. Hearing nothing, is there a motion to approve the minutes from August 7th?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike.
Seconded.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay, we'll move to the vote. I'll just advise at the beginning here that I won't be voting. I did watch the recording, but I didn't attend the meeting, so I will abstain. Everyone else, if you are in favor of the motion, please raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
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 I got 2. I don't see Mike. Jim Mack, I see you. We're at 3. Mike Dungus?
Aye.
Excellent. And Ron Kumit's hand is up. Thank you, Ron. Got all that, Callie? Okay, good. And I also see that Senator Renner has joined us. Good morning.
Morning all.
All right, let's move on to the regional town hall and community listening session planning discussion. I'm going to, there's kind of 2 components to this. There's the logistics and scheduling and administrative stuff that Jen has been handling. And then I'll have some information on where we are with with the content development. So Jen, I know we have some firmer dates than we might have last time. You want to go over all of that?
Sure. The planning on my side of this, as you mentioned, Barb, has been mostly logistics and a very high level what of the meeting, not granular in content. As part of that, I've reviewed several slide decks that Mission Critical provided from other town hall type meetings that they've done in various parts of the country with other clients. And reminding folks that are watching that these town hall meetings have a target audience of first responders, fire, EMS, police, communications staff, as well as local and state officials who want to learn more about the project status and be able to provide input on some very high level priorities as Mission Critical moves into additional phases of this project. So the first one is going to be a representative of the Northwest quadrant of the state. And I should also add that each of these meetings will have a dial-in option, a remote option. So all 4 of these meetings will be available to people in person or online. The first one will be on September 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Swanton Town Hall on 1 Academy Street in Swanton. The second one will represent the southwest quadrant of the state. It will be at the Vermont Fire Academy at 93 Davidson Drive in Pittsford, Vermont. This will be a brown bag lunch session. Folks are invited to bring their own lunch, as it will be a working session through the noon hour from noon to 2. The third one will represent the Northeast quadrant at the Northeastern Vermont Regional Hospital at 1315 Hospital Drive in St. Johnsbury. And that will be on Tuesday morning, the 17th of September from 8 to 10. And then the fourth and final one will be at representing the southeast corner of the state at the Springfield Parent-Child Center, 80 Jack and Jill Lane in Springfield. And that will be on Thursday evening, September 19th from 5 to 7 p.m. So those are the where and the when. We have made the following assumptions: that we needed AV capability for Zoom or Teams or whatever platform we're using based on the location, and that we were looking for spaces that had seating for at least 40 people. It's possible we could get 6 people, and it's, I guess, possible we could get 60, but that's probably an overestimation. So we went with an assumption of seating for at least 40 people and the ability for others to participate remotely. And then with that, again, as I said, I reviewed the slide decks that guided some of these town hall meetings in other places, provided some input to Mission Critical, and then I am tossing the football back to Barb to plan more of the content and meeting flow with a couple of folks on the task force.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Are there any questions on the logistics piece just yet? Or for Jen?
I have a question logistically. Do we have the capability in these locations, Jen, to have a whiteboard? Because I do know that kind of taking notes, one thing I found is in situations where things can be a little tenuous with opinions, taking notes down publicly and having them displayed for everybody to see kind of makes people feel super comfortable that they're being heard. And I think it might be worth doing that. So
I don't know the answer to that. I know that we can use a piece, the technology platform that Mission Critical has is going to be used in every location that we can. And I will let Rance speak to whether or not there is a whiteboard built in, but we can certainly use the chat feature to capture people's comments so that they know that it's officially part of the meeting record. But go ahead, Rance, and maybe speak a little bit about the platform MCP uses.
Yes, not to get into specifics about it, but either way, we'll have a platform. It's actually part of our whole, when we do these regional town halls, is we take notes and they would be displayed in some way. So whether it's through the manual method of a whiteboard, or if we display it on a screen, either way, we're going to take notes because it's actually part of the program to be able to engage the personnel. So yes, very much acknowledged.
love that. Thank you very much, Rance. I appreciate it.
Great. Okay. I will move on then to the content piece. So really at a high level here, we narrowed it down through multiple conversations to really some very basic things that we want to understand from these stakeholders that will be joining us at these regional town halls. So I think in terms of general flow, right now we have at the start of the presentation, there will be an overview of the task force's work. I'm envisioning that coming from a script that is used by whatever task force member may be present at each of these meetings. So kind of where we are, that script would include bullet points of the message we want to be sure we deliver at each and every meeting, and I'm still hammering out what the content of that will actually look like. But the biggie is that we convey that there's no predetermined path here, right? There's no predetermined vision on how this system planning is going to end up, and stressing that we need the input from the people that will be most impacted by it. So this, at the start of each, there'll be some sort of introductory piece on that. Then there'll be an overview of the timelines from perhaps from Mission Critical or Televate. And then we have kind of the three basic questions, which are: question one is what's working and what's not working in the status quo, so the way things are now. If we need prompts to get the conversation going, we're talking about what's working and what's not working with respect to technology and facilities, information flow and processing of emergency calls, the capability to communicate or coordinate with responders. In other words, are there dead zones? Staffing scheduling issues would be another prompt. Dispatch processes and training, the ability to record, document events or actions, funding and operations, and governance. So, so those would kind of be the prompts to get the conversation going. And when we develop the invitation to go out to the stakeholders to notify them of these meetings, I envision that we will include some of these prompts to get them thinking ahead of time, that this is what we're looking for. So that's question one: what's working, what's not working with the status quo. Question two: what are your must-haves in a future regional system? And question three would be: what are your deal breakers in a future regional system? And then as a follow-up really to all of that, there's if time allows, or perhaps this would be a survey question after the town hall, what are the top 3 priorities in a future system? And we're anticipating things like cost to my department or community, reliability of comms, addressing the dead zone issues, local voice and governance, perhaps. We would want to hear from them what their top 3 priorities are. So I am going to stop there. That was kind of a lot of information, and see if anybody has any comments on that approach generally with the 3 big questions, or anything else they want to share about content for these town halls. All right, let me see that I can see you. Should I assume silence is agreement?
Well, that was a
agree.
pretty comprehensive list. So I don't think there's much room for improvement.
No, and we
Okay.
also had, when we were kicking the ideas around, we have to acknowledge that it's a 2-hour window, and if there's 6 people present, there's going to be a room to go a lot deeper. If there's 50 people present, there's not going to be time to let everyone answer sort of the very high level questions if we get caught down in the weeds. So really try to leave the structure open enough to flex depending on who shows up and how many and how talkative they are. We also did talk about ensuring that we have sort of ground rules for the meeting, but also alternative ways to communicate. Some folks won't speak up in a meeting, so making sure that they have our email address, providing something as basic as note cards if people want to write down thoughts in the meeting and drop them on the way out. And of course, doing a attendance list so that we can follow back up for surveys to get into more granular detail post town hall.
Jen, we had talked about like a polling application, a way to poll participants and or texting thoughts in. And I'm remembering an email exchange that, I guess I'll go to Rants, that Mission Critical may have those capabilities.
Yes, I'll jump in there. We do have that ability. I know Jen and I and Bonnie have talked about that. It just depends on, we still need to work out at the location if we are going to host. We can do the polling through the hosting piece on our end. And I know we're still talking through some of that at this point. So I'll have a better answer on that. But either way, I think we'll be able to establish something of that effect.
Okay, great. And that kind of goes to the note cards, right? That could be our electronic note cards for folks that are attending remotely. Anything else on content? Ron, I see your hand.
So, I'm thinking back to previous attempts to get people to give us their opinions and buy-in and all this other stuff on communications and dispatch related issues. And I'm wondering if we have some way to, as we reach out and try to get people to show up, for them to sort of let us know that they're coming and sign up, so that we can sort of get the feel for whether or not we need to, at the very last minute, do some extra effort to get more people to show up. This has just traditionally been what happens to all of these efforts, is that some small number of people actually show up and give their opinions, and then everybody says, well, I don't like it. I'm just going to hold my breath and not participate because you didn't do it my way.
Right.
Any thoughts about that?
Jen, I see your hand.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out, Ron, that I think how we communicate this or advertise, so to speak, these sessions is going to be really important. That we all members of the task force really get out and talk to people and say, this is your opportunity to provide input. I did want to mention that when you said and get buy-in, we're not at the point in the project that we're asking them to buy in on anything other than have their voice be heard about priorities as options begin to take shape. I think that we're at a stage in the process where we're really still information gathering, and we have to make sure people understand that we can't begin to offer ideas about what the future should look like if people aren't providing the input at this stage. We are in the formation stage. The next stage, once there are options on the table and we're seeking to try and get buy-in to one way or another, that's going to be a much more difficult audience to engage and get meaningful participation from. But I really think if we can frame these meetings in the manner in which they are meant to be, as listening sessions, so we can hear about the priorities and what's on stakeholders' minds. I think all we can do is chat it up the best we can and provide alternative ways to receive feedback other than showing up at one of these meetings. Although the fact that there's virtual options leads me to believe that like literally anyone who has an interest could participate. So
to be clear, I mean, I agree. To be clear, I guess I misspoke in that clearly at this stage, we're not seeking buy-in for any solution that we eventually come up with. But I think getting them to buy into the idea that this is the right way to go about this, and that they should contribute their opinions, and that this is a valid way to fix some problems is where I was going with that. And I think that it's going to be hard to gauge what kind of participation we really have until we have these sessions and then find that only 6 people show, and like hardly anybody contributed their opinions.
So I can tell you that we've been talking about that with I have been talking about that with Mission Critical in terms of we contemplated a registration process, but we thought that might turn people off, that might actually be a barrier to participation, having to commit to saying that you're there. But we do envision part of our advertising of this being mostly generally electronic and directing people to a landing page where they can get information about the specifics of each of the 4 meetings. And we can measure traffic on that landing page, so we could at least get an idea how many clicks we're getting, right? And we did talk about registration, but generally shied away from it. But if the group feels otherwise, we could ask people to say that they're coming. I mean, I don't really have a firm feeling either way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Go ahead, Barb.
No, you go ahead, Ron.
I mean, certainly measuring clicks is valid, although if you're measuring clicks, you don't know if you're getting clicks from people in municipal capacities or within public safety organizations, or if they're just like random people clicking to see what's going on. That's the one drawback with that.
I think, Rance, you've run these animals before. What's your thought on what works best?
Basically, we want to, Jen and I, she hit that, we had that same meeting, is whether you get them to register or not, is basically we wanted that, and also Ron, that invitation that we're developing, we're actually working with our marketing department to that landing page that we keep speaking of, or that invitation, whichever term we want to use at this point, is going to be developed kind of on the marketing side, and then through probably Jennifer and the task force, it'll be sent out to all of those parties. So we won't have a lot of clicks that shouldn't be coming from people that wouldn't have been associated already. So we've got that narrowed down, and then that landing page will give them all the information about all of the particular ones where they can pick which one that they probably will go to and give them the information about that. Registration wise, I'm torn on it as well. I could go either direction with that. But you're right. I feel like if they have to register, then they feel like if they would have to come to that one and say they couldn't come to it. That's the reason we're trying to make it a little bit more all inclusive, because that's why we're making the audio and the Teams platforms available to all 4 of those. So that way anybody could attend from anywhere in the part of that state. You may have that day that person just can't get to any one of those regional meetings. So we want to make it open to all so that everybody can be in there. I'm going to actually jump past that part of it. It's not so much about setting up the meetings. That actually, between locations, times, and dates, we've got that laid out, and we can even do an electronic piece of it. Really, where it comes down, the rubber hits the road kind of a thing, is when they're actually there and how we conduct the meeting, which we've done many of these on the fact of our facilitators. We don't go down. We don't want to go down rabbit holes on different areas. We try to stay on target with the questions that we're trying to answer and what Barb brought up, so we can remain there, so we can get an idea. Again, this goes back to the mission criticals piece of it. We also need to hear from those people, so we know how to devise how the report eventually is going to go. What recommendations do we need to make? And we need to know from those field responders and those people out there what they're thinking. And so they're just going to have to bring that up at the time.
Other thoughts or comments on registration in particular?
Barb, this isn't about that, but I just wanted to make a note that it looks like we may have lost Ron and Mike Dunges.
Oh dear. Okay. Which leaves us with 1, 2, 3. So we need to wait, I believe, for one of them to rejoin. Is that, I'm not quite sure. I'm seeing Dom shake his head. Yes. Is that I'm not sure. Ron is calling Jen. Okay. We'll see what happened then.
Hold on. Ron is present via my phone. There's no power. So say hi, Ron.
Hello.
Okay. Ron's back.
Okay. Did he hear the input from Rance on registrations, the thoughts on that? And does he have any other further comment? I don't hear anything, so.
Okay. He said that when Rance started talking is when he lost power.
Okay.
And so obviously there's going to be a meeting recap that you could catch up with what he said, and let us know if you have any other questions on the plans for the content or registration or not of the meeting.
Okay. Just so you know, Jen, we're not really hearing him come through on your phone, just so
Okay.
you're aware as we go forward.
Okay.
Anything else
So they
on
can't hear you apparently.
on content? Okay. I have a couple other notes here I just want to make sure I covered. We talked about the invitations, the preliminary info going to stakeholders. Jen, are we still planning on having that happen later this week or no, I'm sorry, it'd be later next week, late next week?
Yeah, we're planning to get the invites out by mid to late next week.
Okay. And then I would think that task force members could take a look at their schedules now that we've talked about the dates. And we will be coming back to you to say which can you attend, so that we've had conversations about it would be important to the extent that we can to have representation from as many task force members as we can at each meeting, so that we deliver the message that this is a multi-jurisdictional effort, right? It's not just the state or DPS or the 911 board or what have you. So that we can finalize who's going to be where when as we go along. All right. Anything else on regional town halls before I move on? Okay. Moving then to public comment. I am going to start with, we like to have public comment be 10 minutes in total. So Tracy, do you have anything you'd like to share with us today?
Sure. I mean, I can just explain why I even logged in. I've been working with the Hardwick Police Department. We have a real challenge here in town with radio communications that do not cover the whole town. Only one half of the town really works as far as police being able to communicate with each other. And we have many, 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 many gaps in cell service. So there are many places in town where a policeman out on his own, basically, or her own, can't actually reach anybody. And it's becoming, it's a cause for a lot of concern. So we've been trying to find, we have gotten a couple of estimates for what we need in the way of repeaters to correct this problem, but the cost is beyond our our means currently, and so we've been trying to find some funding sources that might help us with this project. And in looking around for such support, we found out about this effort, and so we're just curious whether or not the work of this task force would even address those kinds of issues, or whether that's not really what it's about. But anyway, so that's why I'm sitting in, just to sort of get a sense. I'm very excited to hear that you're going to be getting out and about in different regions, explaining your work. I do worry that it's kind of a tight time frame. As someone who's been trying to schedule meetings with people, everyone is so freaking busy that I'm hoping those invitations do get out next week, because September 17th is coming right up. And so I want to make sure we get people there to the meeting in the Kingdom. I'm curious just how you're identifying, like, what is your means of spreading the word about those town halls? Because I think that'll be key to make sure it's getting out to the right folks. But anyway, that's what I'm dealing with. And basically, I've been trying to help the police department find funding to help them get a radio repeater system, which would enable them to have coverage over our whole town. And we have not had any luck in that so far. And there's just a lot of anxiety about the gaps in communication in our community. And cell service continues to be, very, very spotty. So that's my story.
Thank you. That's really good feedback on a number of things, including the tight timeline for scheduling. I'm wondering if, I'll talk to Jen about, maybe we can put something out earlier, just
Like
to
save
the date kind of thing. Okay, it sounds like we need to have some more conversations to understand what's going on there in Hardwick, but I hear your message that there's a lot of anxiety. So thanks for sharing that with us, and I hope you'll continue to join us. Let's go to
Hey, Barb, this is Rick. May I make a request?
Rick, sure.
Tracy, can you provide us your contact information either in the chat or via email to one of the chairs, so that we can be sure that we do outreach to you, and that we learn a little bit more about what you're experiencing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I put it in the chat right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Barb.
Perfect. Thank you, Rick. Okay, Senator Renner, do you have any comments today?
Hi there. I would just echo what I just heard Ms. Martin say. I have a town here in Chittenden County, Westford, that is completely cut off when they lose their power. The landlines don't work. They don't have cell service. And I heard about it last week after the storm. Days and days people were without power, and they're without power. They cannot communicate, including the emergency responders. So I would just add Westford, Vermont to your list. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kim Cheney, do you have comments for us today?
Well, yes, I have questions. First of all, are you going to send out, I would like to see the invitation so I know what the meeting, if you're going to send those out. And I was under the impression that there were some federal requirements for governance if you get federal funds. And I don't know whether I'm right or wrong about that, but I think it's the case, and I think it would be important to find that out. I understand we're talking about a mix of federal and state funds, but I think the governance is going to be the hardest part of this, frankly. So
Okay.
I'd like to see the schedule of the meetings, the invites, and anything about governance.
I don't know that we had a plan to send out the invitations more generally, not saying it's off the table, but I suspect it will be posted on our webpage though. So Jen and I can talk about how best to do that.
Yeah,
as
and
we
I
move
just would
forward.
point out
Unless-
that
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just point out, Kim, that the this initial round of these town halls are not the listening sessions designed for the general public. These are specific for first responder communities and town and government officials. So those invitations will be targeted to those audiences. It's not intended for the general public.
I'm not sure I understand that. The general public can listen in.
Of course, yeah. But in
Mhm.
terms of how we advertise it, we will be using our communication media listservs and groups and associations that align with the targeted audience. So of course the general public can listen in, but it's given a 2-hour time constraint on a meeting. It's not intended to be. We will be having different sessions that are intended for the general public to weigh in. So that will be the next wave of meetings.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean, Jen. I think my vision of these meetings are you'll get a lot of people that know very little about what's going on. And you had a lot of questions to ask, one of which was about governance. And I think that's going to be the hardest thing to put together in all of this. So if there are any mandatory requirements, if you want federal funding, we should know about them. And, you know, this is a song I've been singing a long time. We've never gotten a firm answer as to whether there are federal requirements.
I'm not clear what you're referring to with federal requirements. The work of the task force comes from general funds from the state.
Well,
So I'm not
understand
clear
that.
what you're referring to about federal requirements to hold a town hall session.
No, not to hold a town hall session to get money. The end part of
Sure.
all this is people want money.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's essentially 3 sources, only one of which has enough to do anything, that's federal. So if there's federal requirements for governance, which there were in the last go around we had in requests for funding, I think it would be good to know about them now. And if you're going to ask about governance, I know the answer already. It's leave me alone and give me the money.
Well, I think that's a bridge we'll cross, right, at the appropriate time. But I've made note of your comments, Kim. Thank you for them. And let's continue on with public comment. Stephen Whitaker, do you have anything to share today?
Yeah, I think it segues nice with what Kim just said and the woman from Hardwick is that the CISA and the Department of Homeland Security have for a decade or more emphasized the prerequisite requirement for both regional and state governance, and we have neglected this. We're barreling down, a whole bunch of effort going into these workshops when no one has been briefed on what failover is, and what towers don't have generators, and you're going to get the quality of input based on the general lack of knowledge of municipal and first responder communities. We wouldn't be in the mess we're in if everybody already had basic understanding of what best practices and what standards are. This task force has done nothing to promulgate standards for what a vision of what we're shooting for, which is resilient, redundant, failover, IP, disaster ready infrastructure. And without a vision out there, you're not going to get a whole lot of meaningful feedback. I've already warned about that. But I am also concerned and more than a little annoyed that when I keep bringing up governance and the alleged confidentiality of all the survey and technical data, this body doesn't want to talk about it. That this body, no one's speaking up from the, Ron Kumitz or Mike Donges, or no one's speaking up to say, let's put this on the agenda and talk about it. You were supposed to hire a lawyer who wouldn't have let you get away with violating public records law that way. And I am prepared to litigate that if you persist. But my point is that this task force is really treading water and being led around by the nose by the two co-chairs, and nothing, data collection. I had most of the data collected, 2 years ago, and I gave it to folks. We know how much we're spending, but we don't have designs for resiliency during peak storm season that we're in. Anyway. I guess I would ask somebody to account for why all the detailed input that has been given in this task force and in the prior working group has not been addressed by this body. Why is it not discussed and fleshed out, and pros and cons, or, tabled for later or out of sequence? You can't just keep sticking your head in the sand. I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Is there anybody else on the line that would like to add public comment? Okay. Moving on, then we will go to project updates from Televate and Mission Critical. Let's start with Televate.
Thank you, Barb, and good morning, everyone. I will go over overview of where we are in the project. I think we've had a lot of discussion up to this point. We are still in the data collection phase and discovery phase. I will give me a second here. I'll share my updated schedule, which if you've seen the status report, you have that. The major accomplishments over the last couple of weeks were primarily the site visits. The site visits were scheduled to conclude on August 16th, and the initial schedule was complete on that date last week. Although I do show that red, as you see in the schedule, there were 8 dispatch centers that MCP was not able to meet with. And I'm sorry, is there some feedback?
Dom, I'm going to interrupt you, Dom. There are a couple people not on mute. If you could mute, please, if you're not speaking. Callie, can you keep an eye and there we go. Make sure that we don't have any open mics, so to speak.
All right, thanks, Barb. I'll continue.
Success.
As I mentioned, we did complete the first, the scheduled for the dispatch center visits. We did have 8 dispatch centers that MCP was not able to meet with due to the dispatch centers having other activities or not able to meet their schedule. So we will have to complete that at a later time. As we've talked earlier today, we will have both MCP and Televate in state later in September for the town hall meetings. We are working to reschedule those 8 dispatch centers to meet at that time. So I do show that additional time frame, extending the site visits in the September time frame to cover those. But you will see there's in the little trackers at the bottom of the schedule, we have met with 30 out of the 38 dispatch centers. In terms of data questionnaires. We've received 27 out of the 38. At this point, that's probably what we feel we're going to receive. And for those that we did not receive data questionnaires, we'll be just completing the information we need and compiling the information we need during the on-site visits, and that has been effective. On the schedule there, I also have extended the analysis, line 13, perform analysis, since we will be still visiting dispatch centers in middle of September. I extended that slightly. So while we are adjusting the schedule based on activities and availability of the dispatch centers, I feel we're still on point to be able to meet and develop our deliverables within the time frame we've identified. In addition to those activities, the site visits, Televate and MCP have been working to develop a inventory of the wireless systems, the land mobile radio systems throughout the state. We have put together a list of currently used transmit receive sites, both those operated by the state. We've also compiled those operated by Velco, the major utility throughout the state. And we've identified so far over 200 plus municipal transmit receive sites that are being operated by various municipal entities. So we're compiling all of those to make sure we have a complete list of the resources available, and that will also be used to evaluate where we have dead spots from the public safety LMR perspective. As we've talked, we have scheduled the town hall meetings for those 2 weeks in September, and the invitations will be going out next week. And so over the next couple of weeks, we'll be working on the content for the town halls. We'll be establishing the invitations, as I mentioned. The analysis of the data collected to date is ongoing with MCP, and those are our primary activities moving forward. Happy to answer any questions from task force members.
Thank you, Dom. I'm not seeing any hands up.
All right.
I believe. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, good. Thank you. All right, let's go to Rance for the mission critical update.
Mission critical update is Dom actually hit almost everything that we have. We're still working on. He is correct. What we are doing with it, just to reiterate on the town halls, those dates that have already been put out, we are catching up those other 8 agencies for various reasons. It was just scheduling on their part, just not able to meet with us that first time we were out. So we're going to come back. And so during that 2 weeks of those town halls, you saw that 2 of them were in 1 week and 2 of them in the second week. We're actually putting those agency visits back in there. So we'll be in the state for that entire 2-week period doing the town halls and visiting these other agencies as well. The planning of those town halls is still going on. So we just need to make sure, as we head with that, we've provided some information. We have some more information to give and to set up on the marketing side of that and get those pieces out for whether we go with a full registration, but at least the landing page, they know what's going on. I think the only other thing I want to add, and we're going to put out some more information about that, there is a cybersecurity assessment piece of this project, which is different than the questionnaire. And that information, I have put that information out. I know probably most everybody on this call has seen that, and this to the agencies themselves. There has been a little bit of confusion with it because it's a portal that they sign into to fill out the assessment part of that. We are going to send out some more information about that just to make sure nobody gets any confusion about the cybersecurity assessment as opposed to the questionnaire. So when you see that, and Jen, I haven't got to talk to you about that, but we'll enlist your help and probably Barb. so that we can kind of put that out coming from you guys as well, to so that they don't think it's some kind of a, what we've been running into is just they think it's some kind of a spam thing.
Yeah.
And it's understandable with today's it's today's world with cybersecurity. Everybody's being very protective of their emails, which is totally understandable. We just have to get the right message out there so they understand that it's still a piece of the pie that we need for the report. So we'll follow up on that with you closely, Barb and Jen, at a later date.
Okay, great. Any questions from task force members for rants? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on to new business. Do task force members have any new business for today? Ready. Moving on again, we will confirm the next meeting date, which is on your calendars for Wednesday, September 4th, 2 weeks from today. And if there's nothing further, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So
I would
moved.
move, yes, so moved that we adjourn.
Thank you, Jen. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm seeing Paul, Jim,
Aye.
Barb, Jen.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, the meeting is adjourned then, and thank you, everybody. We will talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good week or two.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.